So tell me if this sounds familiar. So you're sitting at school, you're 16 years old, and you're thinking, I'm okay at a few things, but not really great at anything. And definitely not good enough to apply to Oxford, the best university in the world. Well, this was exactly my situation. I went from being average at maths and physics and all my other subjects to getting into the best university in the world for engineering, one of the hardest courses. Some would say an impossible task, but I'll tell you exactly the 3 steps I took to make my dreams come true. I'll even share some things that I missed out that could make your journey going through this so much easier. So buckle in. Step 1, understand the gap. To know where you want to go, you need to know where you are. This is the first thing I did after my teacher told me, you have potential, but you don't really know how to use it. So I decided to make a change. I went onto the internet, I Googled the grade requirements for Oxford engineering, and I found maths A-star, physics A-star, hopefully further maths, and getting at least an A. First of all, I was like, okay, let's just scrap this idea. But then I forgot about it for a while and just accepted the difficulty, the challenge ahead. And I thought, okay, that's where I want to be, hopefully, but where am I currently? In order to figure that out, I took some past papers in maths, physics, and further maths. I marked them all myself, and I figured out where I was standing in that moment in time with my current grades. And this is a crucial step, no matter how much it hurts you on the inside. You have to be honest with yourself, and you have to know, okay, where do I want to go and where am I currently at in order to take the next step? You have to figure out what direction you want to take action in, because action without a direction is just pointless. It's wasted energy. It would be useless to take a step if it's in the wrong direction. So we figured that out first. After you know where you are, you need to figure out what to focus on specifically. So after I did these past papers, I would mark them, and then I would look at all the topics covered, and I would order the topics in terms of the ones that I performed the worst in to ones that I performed the best in. Great, so now you have a sense of what you have to work on and what is most important. So the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, things that productivity gurus always talk about, is doing the 20% of the work that gives you 80% of the results. And what we need to do next is exactly that. In an ideal world, I'd go through each topic and spend as much time as I needed, but I just had a year. In fact, just a little bit less than a year. And so what I did was I worked through the topics from my worst performing ones and slowly making my way to the better performing ones. So focusing just on what I did worst at the start and slowly making my way through. But once I figured that out, how was I going to revise? Well, that's step 2. Now we have step 2, which is start yesterday. Now this brings a sense of urgency. I was, and I'm sure you are as well, working on a very short time schedule. And again, I said it before, but I'll say it again. We have to focus on the things that move the needle the farthest. We have to really focus in on what are the most important things to work on. So we figured out where we are. We figured out what we need to work on. Now we need to know how to do it. And if I've learned one thing in life, is that you have to always have a plan. A plan is half of the work. It's something my parents always told me, but I never truly understood it until then. So this is how I plan my work. Let's say in each of those past papers I did, I found 3 worst performing topics. So that is 3 topics in 3 subjects. So that is 9 topics total. Now, if each of these topics would take 10 hours to revise, go through content, take some exams, 10 hours to complete one topic, that would give 90 hours of total work to master these 9 topics, 3 in each subject. So now if I take a calculator, let's say everyone has about 3 hours after school that they can choose to do work in. They can choose to do other things, but work here is what we're thinking about. 5 days a week, 3 hours of revision time. And let's say on the weekends you can do about 7 hours if you're really focusing. 3 times 5 plus 2 times 7. 29 hours. So everyone has roughly 30 hours of time they can dedicate to work in a week. So if we said we had 9 subjects and we have 30 hours a week, that means in 3 weeks we can master these 9 subjects. Actually, something that is quite doable. And now as we're framing things, we begin to think, okay, if we accept that we'll have to do a lot of hard work, it's manageable to revise everything and master all of the topics. Now you might think, Lord Almighty, this is going to be tough. Yeah, of course it's going to be tough. But there is a point for everyone, at least for me there was, in your life where that flip switches and you think, okay, I just have to take this into my own hands now. It was that realization that I could make my own plan, I could force myself to do more. It's quite empowering when that could do something becomes a will do something. And that's kind of what I had to work on. I had to take matters into my own hands and completely own the work that I produced. That was a huge transformation for me, and I hope as you experience and go through this that it will be the same for you. Now, in terms of how to revise, I've got a bunch of videos that you can look through. I share a few tips and tricks in each of those. But basically, if you want to run quick, you practice running. If you want to swim, you practice swimming. If you want to play tennis, you just play tennis for a load of hours. So if you want to get good at doing an exam in maths, then you should just do exams in maths. Everything is in exam practice. I would print off the last 5 years of past papers for a given subject, and I would just go through those for every single subject. But I think that what most students don't realize is doing the past paper is half of it. The other half of that time should be marking it. It should be dividing it into different topics, seeing how well you performed in each topic. Because things you got right are not important. You will only get better at things you did wrong. So then once I figured that out, I would make flashcards. I would go into my Anki or Quizlet and I would make flashcards on exactly the things I got wrong. Sometimes even just writing the question, screenshotting it and copying it exactly into the software. And then I would incorporate those flashcard revisions into the exam practice revision. So from an exam, you get 1, the results, and 2, you make flashcards. So you've done 2 things at once there. Again, if you want more tips, just check out some of my recent videos that go into a bit more detail about flashcards and things like this. Step 3, and the most important step, is believe in yourself. Finally, and I don't say this lightly, but from the depth of your heart, you have to trust yourself. You have to believe that you are capable of completing what you set out to do, eventually. Now at the start, looking at the great difference between what I needed to get and where I was at, of course I was skeptical. But good goals should be ambitious. They should completely scare you. You shouldn't be sure that you will achieve them, but that's exactly what makes them exciting. Where confidence comes from throughout the process is evidence. Confidence is evidence. Growing up in school, you just hear that some kids are more confident than others. It is a term thrown around as if some people have it and some people just don't. But confidence without evidence is just delusional, it's just foolish. What I'm saying is confidence in your subjects will only come from the hours and hours that you put into it, and nothing else. Think about what your support network is, your friends, your family, your teachers at school. For me, for the first few months, no one really knew about my dreams of going to Oxford. I would work on this little dream silently and not tell anyone, but what I now realize is a couple of good things come from telling people your hopes and dreams. And I mean, not just anyone, your circle. Firstly, by saying them, they just become more achievable. The more you tell yourself, the more it will feel okay and actually quite reasonable. I remember I was pretty nervous about telling my parents, but then I told them and they were like, oh, that's a pretty good dream. That's a pretty good hope to have, you know? They didn't go crazy, we didn't celebrate it. It was just like, oh, cool, that sounds like a good idea. At the time, obviously, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but then later it also gives context to your friends and to your family about why you're working so hard. They start understanding why you stayed at school longer or why you lock yourself into your room. It's because you have this big dream that you're working on. And by saying that dream to your inner circle, it will become a joint effort. They will do their best to help your dream come true as much as you do your part. Another thing, one day I went to school and I told some of my friends that I was sort of aiming towards this goal. And then I realized 3 of them were trying to do the same thing. So what good thing came out from that is that we made a little club after school just studying together for that same dream. So with this little gang of 4 of us, we kind of worked together and pushed each other, learned together, shared ideas, and made something that was inherently boring, like studying or revising, into a group activity. So get your support network and let them in on some of your dreams, because they may play a part in helping them come true. And finally, before I lose you guys and let you start your journey of success, I'll leave you with one thing to remember while you're going through each of the phases. It will be hard, but if it was easy, everyone would do it. This is just a little phrase that I kept telling myself whilst going through hard things. I would keep reminding myself, and I'll say it to you as well, just to make you feel a little bit special, as not everyone would even take the first step of clicking on this video and trying to do something very, very hard. So that first little task is ticked. That first step is a success. It will be a struggle along the way, of course, but studying is your job. So just do your job. And if you ever feel unmotivated along the way, as you will before each session, just put one foot in front of the other. Take the first step and the others will follow. By taking one step at a time when you're struggling, just 10 minutes at a time, the session will be over before you even know it. All right, guys, thanks for watching. If you have any further questions, just leave them in the comments below and we'll all do our best to answer you. And I'll see you in the next one. Good luck. Smash it.